"I'll marry you if you can wear this dress." The king, who was left in shock. There are moments in life that break us from within, moments where pride transforms into prison and power into absolute solitude. In the darkness of his royal chambers, King Rodrigo of Valdoria knelt on cold stone, sobbing, "Margaret, my God, what have I done?" But to understand how this mighty king ended up broken and weeping, we must return 6 months earlier, to the day of the crimson dress. 3 months. Only 3 months since Queen Margaret was taken by fever, 3 months since King Rodrigo held her cold hand, powerless, as life escaped from those eyes he had loved for 15 years. And already the court was pressing for a new queen. "Your Majesty, the kingdom needs heirs. You must marry again," Councillor Fernando said cautiously. King Rodrigo's knuckles whitened. "Heirs, as if my Margaret were merely a breeding mare to be replaced." "Your Majesty, I didn't mean—" "Silence! You want me to marry? You want a new queen? Very well." Pain spoke in that moment. Pain and something darker. The rage of a man who had felt total powerlessness for the first time. And that powerlessness was transforming him into something monstrous. The next morning, he summoned all noble ladies of the kingdom. They came in droves, silks, jewels, faces painted with hope and ambition. "Look at yourselves, pompous peacocks. Do you believe any of you can take Margaret's place?" His voice cut like a blade. "Guards, bring the dress." 4 servants entered carrying the crimson dress like a sacred relic. Master Elena's last creation for Queen Margaret. Blood-red velvet embroidered with golden roses, magnificent but impossibly structured, designed for Margaret's slender frame with an unforgiving corset. King Rodrigo's hands trembled as he touched it. For one moment, his mask cracked. Then his face hardened. "Any woman who can wear this garment alone without help will become my wife and Queen of Valdoria." Father Anselmo pulled him aside. "Your Majesty, this is madness." "Exactly, Father," Rodrigo whispered. "Let them all fail, then they'll leave me in peace." What he didn't know was that his cruel game would destroy him in ways he could never imagine. What followed was grotesque. One by one, noble ladies attempted and failed in humiliating ways. Lady Constance emerged with the dress torn. "The laces! How can anyone reach them?" Lady Beatrice became trapped in the corset, gasping for help. Lady Inez gave up in tears. 27 noble ladies tried. All failed, and with each failure, King Rodrigo's smile grew wider, hollow and empty. Days turned to weeks. The challenge became dark legend. Nobles from neighboring kingdoms arrived. All attempted, all failed. It was on a rainy November afternoon that a simple cart arrived at the gates. Isabella was 23, with eyes red from days of weeping. She was a large woman, with full, generous curves, the complete opposite of Queen Margaret's willowy frame. Her hands were calloused, her body soft and rounded. She had come merely to deliver linen shirts, but her heart was shattered. 1 week since she had buried Master Eleanor, the old seamstress who had been mother, family, everything. Eleanor had died in Isabella's arms. "My plump little dove, promise you'll honor our craft. The crimson dress was my farewell. Your body will change. Trust the magic." Those were her last words. Now Isabella overheard 2 kitchen maids gossiping. Another one failed today. Lady Joanna fainted inside the dress. "What dress?" Isabella asked. They told her everything, the cruel challenge, the legendary dress no one could wear. Who created it? Master Elena. Her last work before she died. The world tilted beneath Isabella's feet. Pain transformed into iron determination. "Take me to the king. Now." "But girl, you're just a peasant. The dress was made for the queen's tiny waist. Elena taught me its secrets. Take me now." When Isabella entered the royal hall in her muddy dress, King Rodrigo laughed harshly. "Now they bring me fat peasants. Girl, you couldn't fit 1 leg into that dress." Cruel laughter rippled through the courtiers, but Isabella remembered her promise. "I didn't come for your crown. I came for the memory of someone I loved more than life itself." The king's laughter died. "What do you speak of? Master Elena, the woman who created the dress you used to torture others, she died a week ago in my arms. Her last work is being profaned by your cruelty." Absolute silence fell. King Rodrigo saw something in her eyes he recognized. Pain, the same pain in his own mirror. Elena is dead. She died alone, forgotten. While her masterpiece was used in your cruel games, it was made with love, Elena told me, and now Isabella collapsed to her knees, weeping for Elena. For memory profaned, art turned to cruelty. Something inside King Rodrigo cracked. "Rise, please. Let me try. Let me honor Elena. She taught me its secrets. She said my body would change when the time was right, not for your crown, but for her." The king stared. "The dress is half your size. Impossible is just not yet understood. Let me try." Father Anselmo stepped forward. "She has more courage than all the nobles combined. Let her try." King Rodrigo looked at her, truly looked, not at her body, but at her heart. Courage, someone using pain to honor love rather than create suffering. It reminded him of Margaret. "Very well, try." 30 minutes passed in deathly silence. Courtiers whispered that the dress simply couldn't fit. Then the doors opened. Every head turned. A collective gasp. Isabella stood there, transformed. The crimson dress fell upon her like a second skin, but her body had changed. Where there had been generous curves, now was a slender figure matching Margaret's frame. Her soft face had refined into elegant cheekbones, every lace perfectly tied. The golden roses seemed to glow, and Isabella's face, transformed but still recognizably hers, was wet with tears. King Rodrigo felt the floor tilt. "What sorcery!" Lady Constance shrieked. "Witchcraft!" But Isabella's voice, unchanged, cut through the chaos. Not witchcraft, Elena's final gift. She wove more than thread. She wove transformation, truth. The king staggered toward her. "How? What are you?" "I am still Isabella, still the fat peasant girl, but Elena wove something extraordinary. When someone wore it with pure intention, not ambition, but love for something greater, it would reshape them, to teach a lesson." What lesson? That bodies are vessels. That what we look like matters less than who we are. That you created this challenge to punish the world. And Margaret wanted you to learn something crucial. She withdrew parchment from the bodice. "From Queen Margaret, for you." King Rodrigo took it with shaking hands. He recognized Margaret's script. He read aloud, voice breaking, "My beloved Rodrigo, your pain has transformed into poison. You created this challenge knowing no one could succeed. But I don't want you to die with me. I want you to live, to love again. That's why I asked Elena to create this dress with magic. Magic that would transform whoever wore it with true love. Not for you or power, but for something greater. I made it impossible based on body alone, so when someone succeeded, you'd understand. Bodies change, beauty fades. I wasn't always slender. As a child, I was plump, mocked cruelly, forced to starve until I became what society demanded. You never knew, because I was ashamed. The woman who wears this will transform temporarily, then return to her true self. You must choose. Will you honor your decree regardless of what she looks like? If someone wore this dress, she did so through extraordinary courage. She deserves your respect, whatever her form. Marry her only if she teaches you that true beauty lies in the soul, that love isn't about perfect bodies but perfect hearts. I set you free, free to love again, free to see beyond surfaces. Your Margaret. The letter slipped from his fingers. The King of Valdoria collapsed to his knees and wept for his lost love, his cruelty, the monster he'd become. He cried for mocking Isabella when she'd shown such courage. He cried for Margaret's hidden pain. "Margaret, forgive me, I was so blind." Isabella knelt beside him and touched his face. "Elena told me, the king is broken, and you are broken too. He will mock your body, as the world always has. But be brave. Show him worth isn't measured in inches, but in heart." King Rodrigo looked at her transformed face. But now he saw past the magic, saw the courageous woman who had walked into his hall, knowing she'd be ridiculed. When you remove the dress, I'll return to my true self, to the fat peasant girl you mocked, and you must decide, will you honor your decree to who I am, or only to the illusion? Father Anselmo's voice rang firm. She wore the dress. Isabella, in whatever form, succeeded where all others failed. I mocked you so cruelly. I don't know if I can forgive either. But Eleanor believed we deserved second chances. Margaret believed you could learn. Perhaps we try. Not as king seeking queen, but as two broken humans trying to see beyond surfaces. 3 days later, Isabella, returned to her full-figured form, sought out Rodrigo. There's something you need to know. Elena wasn't just Margaret's seamstress. She was her mother. The king's face went pale. What? Margaret was illegitimate. Elena was a servant who had an affair with a count. When Margaret was born, she was taken and raised as nobility, but Elena never stopped loving her. She became seamstress to be near the daughter she couldn't claim. But here's what you didn't know. Margaret wasn't always slender. As a child, she was plump, mocked cruelly, forced to starve until she became what society demanded. Always hungry. Always afraid that if she ate normally, you'd stop loving her. No, I would have loved her regardless. Would you? Isabella interrupted gently. Would you have noticed her if she'd still been plump? That's why Margaret asked Elena to create this dress, to force you to confront these questions. Elena chose me because I am what Margaret might have been. I am fat, and I refuse to apologize. I am strong, I am skilled, I am worthy, and my worth has nothing to do with my waist. Rodrigo knelt before her in genuine humility. You are extraordinary. Not because of magic, but because you walked into my hall knowing you'd be mocked and tried anyway. That's real courage. You wore that dress to honor Elena. You endured my cruelty because you loved someone. That's what Margaret was teaching me, that love has nothing to do with bodies and everything to do with souls. So what now? Do you marry the slender woman you saw, or the one before you now? Rodrigo didn't hesitate. I marry the woman who taught me to see truly, if you'll have a fool who must learn to be worthy of you. 6 months passed. Rodrigo and Isabella married in a simple ceremony. Isabella wore a dress she'd made for her real body. The crimson dress was placed in the royal crypt between Margaret and Elena's tombs. But the story didn't have a perfect ending. Rodrigo still sometimes caught himself judging by appearances. Rodrigo, Isabella would say gently, I know. I'm sorry. I'm trying. That's what matters. Isabella faced struggles too. Some nobles mocked her, but she created a sewing school accepting girls of all sizes, teaching them their worth wasn't measured in inches. Together, they learned and stumbled and tried again. On quiet nights, Rodrigo would visit the crypt. Thank you, my love, he'd whisper to Margaret's tomb. Isabella doesn't apologize for existing. She's teaching me everyone deserves the same. I hope you're proud. The wind carried the scent of lavender, and Rodrigo smiled. This was the story of the crimson dress, not of magical transformation, but of transformed hearts. Not of bodies perfected, but of souls that learned to see beyond flesh. The greatest magic isn't changing ourselves to fit the world's mold. It's having the courage to break that mold entirely. Sometimes the bravest thing is simply existing as ourselves in a world that demands otherwise. And sometimes the greatest love story is when two imperfect people see each other clearly, all flaws, all truths, and choose each other anyway. True love isn't about perfection. It's about seeing someone's imperfections and calling them beautiful anyway. And that is the only magic that truly matters.